What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's going on with NIO Stock, what's going on with Tsla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and many other tickers. I also want to talk about how the chart's looking for NIO compared to the market, what the Fed just did, and what the news is saying about NIO. But before I break anything down about all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things real quick. I am personally not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. The offer ends in just 7 days, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the market. So, NIO, if anything, was up 3.16% for the day. However, please remember this. When we look at the market got a very aggressive sell-off today thanks to Jerome Powell. If you look at the daily on SPY, it looks very bearish, very, very weak. And if you look at the chart right now, you guys will notice that we're still looking very weak. The market just sold off very hard after Jerome Powell ended up giving his speech. Tesla sold off, and NIO ended up holding up because NIO already sold off by almost 18% yesterday. So it's due to get a bounce. A lot of buyers started stepping in, and they managed to hold it through the selling pressure that came thanks to the FOMC meeting. But the question is, how will NIO move for tomorrow, and how on earth is the stock market looking for tomorrow as well? And the answer is most stocks out there are still looking quite bearish, but there's a chance that NIO will attempt to hold up a little bit better as we're starting to see some buyers stepping in around this range. But first, before we talk about these charts, I want to talk about some data. For tomorrow, as a big reminder, 1 hour before the market opens, we have the initial jobless claims report. We want this to be somewhere between 222 to 225,000 jobless claims. On top of that, we also have more jobs data all coming out an hour before the market opens. We have existing home sales, which is going to be coming out 30 minutes after open, but it's not really anything that's going to move the markets. And we basically have no other major pieces of data coming out that are going to be that significant. Now, when it comes to NIO, the news came out that NIO had added about $1 billion worth of convertible bonds, and this is very important for them. This will lead to some short-term debt increases, but some possible dilution for the future. That's part of why NIO sold off so hard. So it was very oversold yesterday and due for a bounce. That's why NIO managed to hold up, and it's still the biggest headline that's affecting NIO. Now, for the short term, the Fed did not raise rates today. They did not raise rates again today, but they may end up doing it later on in the future for November or December, as we're seeing the probability starting to go up based off what the Fed said in the summary of economic projections. What does this mean? The Fed is telling us that there's an increased probability that they are going to raise rates and hold them up for a longer period of time because inflation is starting to uptick a bit, and also because of the current strength of the labor market. They're not really meeting their goals, and inflation is still too hot in their opinion. What do I mean by that? If you look at core CPI, it's very sticky. It's been stuck between 4 to 5% for many months. Just a few months ago, it was stuck in the 5% range. It was basically stuck there for many, many months, and it tends to be very sticky. It's not close to the 2% target just yet. And on top of this, you can't forget that looking at the all item CPI, this is still well above what the Fed was expecting. It's getting very close to that 4% area. So for all items, CPI is starting to go up thanks to the gas prices and oil prices going up, which is having a negative effect on the market. So that's accompanied by the employment numbers still looking quite good for the economy and not much contraction that the Fed is trying to cause to slow down inflation. That is why the Fed is incentivized to be more hawkish. The uptick in inflation that we just saw is another reason, and also because of the fact that all these things are making the Fed incentivized to hold rates up for longer, which is bearish for the markets. So what's good about NIO is that we had 122 million in volume. The buyers are stepping in because they saw NIO was very, very shorted hard. We saw NIO dropping very hard just yesterday. And we're also seeing a very low price price ratios trying to bounce as NIO is trying to outperform the markets. And finally, there's not really anything going on with the short interest, but I did notice that when looking at the data, we tend to see, very flat stays for Thursday. So I think there's a good chance of that potentially happening. So we do have some data coming out in the morning, but let me just say that NIO may be very flat tomorrow because it's going to get a mix of some selling pressure thanks to the markets, but also some buying pressure as some buyers are still starting to step in between 8.5 or so. And we might just see NIO trade sideways between that range for the majority of the day as buyers are continuing to step in and try to hold it up. Anyways, look at the market. I just want to mention that as far as SPY goes, the daily chart looks weak as we have a very bearish looking engulfing candle. And this could likely lead to maybe a dead cat bounce before even more downside. And I think this thing is going to be heading towards 436. It looks more bearish overall on the daily, on the 4-hour, and also on the 30 minutes time frame. Tesla's looking weaker. If Tesla ends up coming down below this 20 EMA, we're going to be watching this very critical support at 257. If that fails us, we have this big gap down here on Tesla to fill all the way down to 250, and the odds do favor more downside if this trend were to continue. So it is still looking weaker on Tesla. Looking at something else out there like Aapl, unfortunately for Aapl, we have this head and shoulders like pattern that hasn't fully played out just yet. We could see more downside all the way down to these lower levels. 173 is a possibility. Watch for a backtest of 176 before this thing rejects and starts sinking. It looks a little bit weaker. The QQQ looks weaker on the daily. We could be watching it backtest 366. If that fails us, it's going to start coming all the way down towards 361. It's looking weaker. Another bearish engulfing candle looks weak in my honest opinion. And then Nvda stock, it's looking kind of weak too. Look for a little rebound towards this 430 area. There is a possibility it's going to try to retest that and trade sideways for a bit, but then it's going to eventually start selling off, in my opinion, towards 416, eventually even 403. It's also looking weaker as this could be a very big market moving event. So with that said, guys, the market's looking weak, and I think that this may influence, NIO and these other stocks to slow down. On the daily chart, we closed above the 50 EMA. If we hold above this tomorrow, it's going to be a bearish signal of the market entering a downtrend, and that is when the market tends to be very bearish. So because we closed above this, this is a good chance for the bears to step in, and there's a good chance of more downside coming to the markets as a result. So for NIO, I think that NIO is going to likely get dragged down because of this, but at the same time, buyers are going to be trying to step in around 8.5. So I think NIO is just going to trade sideways between 8.5 and $9 and go back and forth, kind of like how it did today, and remain very, very sideways, as that's what tends to happen on Thursdays. I think that's very likely. I think we'll get a very flat close, and I think NIO is going to trade sideways tomorrow. That's my prediction for tomorrow moving forward. All right, guys, so hopefully this video was helpful for every single person that's out there. I know the market is becoming more and more bearish, and this may last for another few weeks, even going into October, but I still believe that it's very possible for us to still turn bullish towards the end of this year once all of this fear settles. And we just want to be patient and be watching to see how this plays out. So I just wanted to thank you all so much for listening. Have an absolutely incredible rest of the day. And just know that, yes, NIO could see downside in the future. NIO could be a week in the future. It's still possible, as we are seeing other catalysts that could potentially slow it down. But please know, despite that, the long term is still very, very bright for the company. I'm still very, very optimistic that NIO will become profitable one day. And I believe in NIO's fundamentals, its vision, and its future. Thank you for listening. Have a great day, everyone. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you, and peace out.